Let's bring in our panel now. Caroline De Rosso, the host of the Royal Report, 10 o'clock Sundays here on Sky News, joins us from Perth. And on the desk with me again is Gemma Tognini from GT Communications. How about those Teals? This is just sickening, isn't it?
I thought I'd seen it all. I haven't seen it all. I just want to put a proposition to Ms Scamps and to Ms Tink. If they were pregnant women who had their babies taken from their wombs and shot in front of them, if they were pregnant women or their sisters or their mothers or their best friends and they were abducted and taken to the streets of Gaza and raped and their bodies desecrated for the world's media, if their children had been at a music festival and terrorists had infiltrated that music festival and gunned down 700 young people, would they feel the way they do? They are the epitome of the disgusting, entitled privilege that is embodied in the Greens and the Teals. None of them have ever set foot outside of their ivory towers to go to a place like the West Bank, and I haven't spent a lot of time there, but I have been there, and that's more than I can say for them. They disgrace themselves, they disgrace Australia, they disgrace every Jewish person in this country. And we promised, our grandparents' generation promised never again, and that is now our responsibility, Chris, and they are a disgrace. And may I say to Labor, and I'm not a Labor voter, so they're not going to lose any sleep over what I think, but may I say to Labor, careful who you hustle up in bed with. Everybody knows that the Labor government, and I'm not suggesting that the Labor government is endorsing what the Greens and what the Teals are saying, but the Labor government enjoys their support, Chris.
Well, they don't rely on it at the moment, but I've always warned, you think that the Teals are just some nicer, friendlier version of the Liberal Party? Here's your proof. They're not. They're more like the Greens on these issues. I have never
been more disgusted in my life, and I lived through COVID in Western Australia, so that's saying something.
It is indeed. Caroline, your thoughts on this too? Just the ignoring of the facts. For instance, when we see the horrific invasion of Gaza that's going to have to go on now, I shouldn't even call it an invasion. It's a door-by-door rooting out of terrorists. But they've given plenty of notice. They've been strategically trying to get rid of the terrorists. They're telling people to get the civilians out of there. When did Hamas do that to the Israelis? They just deliberately target civilians and indiscriminately target civilians all the time. And this moral equivalence is really quite sickening.
It's absolutely revolting. Hard to follow up, Gemma, on those comments because they are absolutely square on. The issue for the Greens and the Teals is that when these sorts of things happen, it's not about the objective fact. So for most people, it's like, well, if someone gets murdered, whoever the murderer is the wrong, is in the wrong, is the bad person, is the whatever. That's not how these people look at situations. They look at these situations from the point of view of who is the oppressor and who is the oppressed. And if you're the oppressed person, it doesn't matter how morally repugnant or illegal your behaviour is. If you're oppressed, it can be justified. So if the oppressor, if it was somewhere here in Australia and a man raped a woman, for example, well, then we believe all women. Unfortunately, when it happens in Israel, if it happens to an Israeli woman, then there needs to be total and perfect proof because until that occurs, it is not a rape. And that there is the way that this has played out over the last week. A standard way above has been expected, and it really is a nod to behaviour that for the rest of us is totally disgusting.
Well, it plays into the terrorist narrative. It actually feeds their propaganda. It gives them succor. They feed on this all around the world and propagate it to people.
Just one more thing, if you might just indulge my latent rage, to Ms Scamps again and to Ms Tink. If either of you took money from Australia's Jewish community as part of your campaign funding, I hope you have the decency to give every last cent back.
Yeah, look, another point too as to how people are handling this in Australia. Some media and I think some Jewish organisations have pointed out the AFL has been silenced on this. Now, you might say, why should the AFL speak about this? Well, the point is, the AFL's spoken out. We know it speaks out on domestic issues.
When are they shy of an opinion,
like
Chris?
the Indigenous voice order. But they've spoken out on Black Lives Matter. They've spoken out against terrorism attacks in New Zealand. And people are saying, well, why aren't you speaking out about this atrocity?
Well, it's a great question. It's like they usually can't help themselves. It wasn't it a couple of months ago where the young Jewish player and there was someone with an Israeli flag in the...
Of course, yeah.
Forgive me, I forget his name.
Yeah, Harry Sheasel.
Doesn't play for Collingwood, so it's not as important, but you know what I mean. And the AFL had to have their arms twisted over that. Of course, you remember the outcry because they wanted to ban the flag. And it's only the Israeli flag that they wanted to ban. I think as an organisation, and it pains me to say this, the AFL is deeply cowardly.
Yeah, they are indeed, and they need to speak out on behalf of that, especially, I'd forgotten that incident, especially in light of that incident where they were ostensibly cracking down on an Israeli flag.
One kid.
Waved in celebration.
Correct.
Waved in celebration. Now, I want to go to something, I'll tell you what, I know you're very emotional at the moment, Gemma, but this issue is very close to you too. I'll go to Caroline first, and this is the Brumbies, the wild horses in the snowy mountains, and the resistance of the state government and the criticism they're getting for culling them, Caroline, and now a suggestion that the federal government should step in and make sure that these animals are culled. A lot of people don't want to see, certainly don't want them shot.
No, and again, it's another double standard when it comes to the environment, and we've heard these stories about how they're impacting the environment. Look, the fact of the matter is these Brumbies have been here, or particularly in New South Wales, before anyone who's alive today was here. So this whole idea that somehow something has happened to impact the environment over that period of time, I really don't think that washes. There's a number of people who have spent a lot of time in that country, who know the area well, who understand the numbers well, understand the ecology. They don't buy it. So I think our bureaucracies, they get excited about all the wrong things.
And now, I'm an old Parks and Wildlife guy. And
yeah.
I'm into...
You're an old hippie greenie, I love it.
I'm into saving these national parks from feral animals, right? You get rid of goats, you're getting rid of pigs, you're getting rid of cats and foxes and rabbits when you can. So they've got to control the horses. It's a matter of how far you go and your methods, I suppose.
And this is so timely because this is a message from a friend of mine in my horse riding group, and I do a lot of riding in the snowy mountains.
Yeah, because you've ridden up there with those horses.
And I can't read the lot of it, but this is around Tantingara Dam, which I've ridden around many times. I found 19 carcasses in one small area, and they do not discriminate. Stallions, mares, foals, pregnant mares. I stopped counting because one carcass led to another. I've taken photos and video. I won't post them, etc., because it's too graphic. The stench was disgusting. So I'm sorry, I'm with Caroline. I've ridden through, I'm not the world's most experienced mountain woman in terms of the snowy mountains, but I know people who've lived there for generations.
Come on, I've seen the pictures.
Listen, I give it a red hot go.
Next time they make the Man from Snowy River, you're a leading role.
I give it a go.
Now it's been a tough discussion, so I thought we should smooth it out with an age-old treat, because there's a story in the news about iced Vovos. Iced Vovos, one of the favourites of the country. Unfortunately, a favourite of Kevin Rudd's. He used to talk about them all the time.
What's a Vovo anyway?
I don't know, but it's these biscuits, Gemma, and people are complaining that they reckon they're not the same as they used to be. They're scrimping on the topping or the size of them. Have you tried one lately, Caroline? I'm going to try one now.
Have one.
Well, I have some here with me, of course. I haven't tried them because I'm a celiac, and that would end badly for all of us. But what I will say is that this is not the first offence by this biscuit company or many others. And often when they don't want to put the price up on things, they will reduce the size, reduce the overall aggregate quantity, so that we think we're getting the same thing, but we're actually not getting the same thing. So I wonder how much our inflation numbers would actually be, how much higher they would be if we knew how much they were scrimping on quantity.
I don't know if they've shrunk or not. I don't think I've had one in 20 years.
I'm not really a biscuit person, but they do seem to be somewhat shorter than I remember.
There you go.
And the jam looks a little bit like the tide's out.
That's it.
The tide's out on this biscuit.
Liz Storer thought they hadn't changed, but you and one of our crew here think they have changed.
In fairness, I'm not really a good judge because I don't really eat this kind of garbage, but whatever.
Gotta go. We're going to keep eating this stuff.